You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
Oh yeah, baby, that's lovely.
Good morning, and it's December the 4th, and welcome to Psychedelics and Cannabis Educational News. We're live here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com. Good morning, Rev Kelly. How are you doing today?
Good morning. Good Monday morning. I'm great. How are you?
Oh, not too bad. I got a bit of a sore foot, but other than that, I can't complain too much.
No, and it's nice weather today. It's a little bit sunny out my window.
Yes. Is it? It's not here. It's overcast here. We had some fresh snow last night, and we can see we have a critter that's living in a culvert underneath part of our driveway.
Oh, what kind of critter is that?
I think from the photo I've seen of it, it looks like a porcupine.
Oh, how wonderful! Wow.
Yeah, it's like probably about 25 feet from our front door.
Wow.
Yeah.
Don't really go near it, but wave.
Right. Yeah.
Hello, Mr. Porcupine.
Gotta be careful letting Tess out at nighttime. Right?
Yeah. You don't want him getting any of those quills or her getting any of those quills.
Yeah, that's right. Well, I don't imagine it won't be there in the spring because it floods through there. So
right.
Yeah,
Just
it'll be
there for a little winter snooze.
Yeah, I can see that. All right. Well, what do you say? Anything you want to mention before we get into the news?
No, not at all. Let's talk about this amazing news.
All right, here we go. First story from the National Post. Canadian veterinarians left out of legal cannabis framework, group says.
It's they say they've been weeded out of Canada's cannabis policy after assurances that they would be included in the legalization framework.
Despite Canada allowing medical and recreational cannabis sales of cannabis, no such legal pathway exists for animal medicine. Something Dr. Sarah Silcox, founder of the Canadian Association of Veterinary Cannabinoid Medicine, hopes to change.
We've been at this for 6 years now, engaging in the best way we know how, she told the National Post. She said, we held dogs on Parliament Hill back in 2019. We made several trips to talk to MPs and senators. We had a petition in the House of Commons that received sufficient signatures to warrant a response. But when the House rose before the petition closed, and it just vanished.
Wow. With its use becoming both socially and legally acceptable in many societies, cannabis is seeing increasing amount of veterinarians for use in everything from anxiety to managing pain.
Recent studies exploring the effectiveness of using non-psychoactive CBD injections to manage osteoarthritis pain in dogs found good results with minimal side effects.
Results of the joint Canadian-Israel study released in August found promising results among 6 dogs responsive to conventional treatments that showed significant drops in pain level and an increase in activity.
Other studies suggest promise in using cannabis in treating epilepsy in dogs. Dr. Ian Sandler is chair of the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association's National Issues Committee and agrees there's a lot of potential for veterinary cannabis.
Veterinarians should be able to access and use these products on a case-by-case basis, he says. And he continues with, we think that there is the need for these products to be used safely and legally within the veterinarian market, but unfortunately we have really been blocked out of this process from day one.
Oh, and I have to agree. Animals have an endocannabinoid system similar enough to humans to react in similar ways to cannabis. Dogs' brains have more CB1 receptors than humans and are more sensitive to the effects. Neither CBD or THC are toxic to dogs.
In 2019, both the CAVCM and the Canadian Veteran Medical Association held meetings with the Federal Health Minister's Office over veterinary cannabis, which Silcox said ended on a positive note.
The representative at the time was quite sympathetic to the position that the current regulations put us in and acknowledged that it was no doubt an oversight when the cannabis regulations were initially drafted, she said, explaining that we're told that veterinary use would be part of the ongoing policy review.
So we submitted letters in advance. Those submissions, she said, were never acknowledged. We have seen a tremendous growth in the amount of published research looking at the use of cannabinoids in treating animals. We even have a full textbook on cannabis and veterinarian medicine, Silcox says. Geez, we don't even have that in the human end of things, a full context that the doctors go by.
Nope.
Full textbook, yeah.
Nope. Oftentimes, these pets are already on multiple anticonvulsant medications and yet still having breakthrough seizures. And just like with people, pet families want to know what they're being given with the option of the available treatments out there.
Yep. Vets discourage owners from blindly feeding pets cannabis products from dispensaries, as products such as edibles aren't meant for animal consumption. Many contain compounds toxic to animals, including chocolate and artificial sweeteners like xylitol, which can be deadly for dogs even in small amounts.
Yeah, that's a good point. However,
chocolate's
tinctures,
not good for dogs. Yeah.
right? If you were to just get a tincture from the over-the-counter OCS kind of store, that doesn't have any of that in it, and it will help your animal with
Yeah. We
what's
got a
going on, right?
buddy
If
all
that's your only
dog.
option, if that's your only
Yeah.
option. Veterinarians can utilize all types of human products off-label, including some very significant ones, and which are opiates, saying they use fentanyl for pain in pets.
Yeah.
Yeah, steroids,
Exactly.
fentanyl,
Yeah.
putting in these animals' bodies.
Yeah, so they continue by saying that so the fact that we are not able to authorize the use of cannabinoid-based products through the medical route is the first time that we're not being aligned with our human prescribing counterparts, which is very, very strange.
Yeah, that would be. A statement from Health Canada said veterinary prescription drugs containing cannabis are subject to the same review as any other pharmaceutical. Quoted as saying Health Canada scientists will then review the evidence to determine whether the risks associated with the drug are acceptable in light of its potential benefits. That's a statement from them.
Yeah. The statement also referred to the July 2022 notice to stakeholders inviting submissions on potential regulatory gaps for CBD containing non-prescription health products for humans and non-humans. So where is it? It was 2 years ago.
Yeah, where is that?
Year and a half. Yeah.
There's a quote hearing talking about October 17th, how Canada amended the human and veterinary prescription drug list to include phytocannabinoids to ensure appropriate oversight of the health products containing cannabis that make authorized health claims. So it was there. They changed the language there.
Yeah.
So what happened?
Yeah, exactly. What happened? Current regulations state that both natural health and veterinary health products contain no more than 10 parts per million of THC and no isolated or concentrated phytocannabinoids. Accordingly, any health product containing phytocannabinoids outside of these exceptions is classified as a prescription drug, according to Health
He
Canada.
said that it could be no more than 10 parts per million of THC and no isolated. So they had the language, they had it written in there for this. Where did it go? This is 5 years ago, and they're still not even considered. Hopefully, when the Cannabis Act comes, the new Cannabis Act, what is it, 0.2 or whatever, there will be.
Yeah. Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
They could have dog
Exactly.
treats at the OCS stores. They could have those there. Like when we talk about this sort of like recreational thing, right? That's what we have at these OCS stores.
Mhm.
Well, that's recreational is a dog treat, CBD dog treats without chocolate. They could have them there.
Yeah. Yeah. There are some treats that I'm sure that could be infused. That would be safe for dogs. You know. But yeah, that's it's good to see that
Should be
that
considered.
they want to get involved. Like, hey, like they're knocking on the door. Hey, come on, we're here.
And they should be considered for
Yeah,
sure.
yeah, exactly. All right, on to our next story. Next story, and this one comes to us from Policy Options, and the headline on it reads: Ontario Cannabis Store earned $234 million, but taxpayers got nothing.
Oh. So the OCS is now the most lucrative provincial cannabis agency in Canada, thanks to 4 consecutive profitable years selling recreational cannabis. Yet throughout that time, it puzzlingly paid no dividends to the Ontario government. What?
Yeah. What? Yeah. It's a government-run agency and it's not supplying any money to the Ontario government, and yet it's making profits like this. OCS ended the last fiscal year with $459 million of accumulated profit in the bank. That makes no sense. The province should either spend the money on public services or stop extracting it from the industry's pockets.
The strangeness of this situation has become increasingly apparent as finance ministers and government agencies from across the country have slowly released their 2022-23 financial results. Quebec's Cannabis Agency published its annual report on June 5, for example, but Prince Edward Island didn't post its statements until November 6th.
They say, let's start by talking about taxes. Cannabis governments collect excise taxes from producers and sales taxes from retailers. For example, the federal government's share of excise taxes and estimated sales tax from cannabis sales across the country totaled $455 million during 2022-23. That equates to about $11.50 per capita, or 8% of every dollar that Canadians spent on recreational cannabis.
Wow.
Mm.
Wow. The top tax collector in total dollar terms was Ontario. It hauled $310 million in excise tax and estimated $148 million of sales tax that fiscal year for a total of $458 million. That's roughly $29.80 per Ontario resident, or 22% of consumers' spending.
Mm. Wow, that's a lot of tax dollars.
Yeah, that's a
Wow.
lot of money.
Meanwhile, Alberta had the highest cannabis tax on a per capita basis at $37.40. The province garnered $172 million, partly because it sold more cannabis per resident than any other province, and partly because its excise tax rate was higher than any other province.
Wow.
So they make the most sales and they collect even higher taxes because they have a higher
Yep.
rate.
Take a look at that.
There you go.
Provincial
Right there on the
taxes. Look
chart.
at that.
Look at that
Alberta's
new-
gotten, they didn't even have any of the provincial sales. They just have provincial excise in Alberta. Interesting.
Yeah.
So
Look at
many
the total.
provinces get additional revenue from the cannabis agencies. For example, Quebec, New Brunswick, and Prince Edward Island government-owned agencies sell cannabis through their own retail stores.
And in Ontario, by contrast, the OCS is mostly a wholesaler. It buys products from producers across the country and resells them to more than 1,700 private sector stores around the province. OCS owns no physical stores itself, but gets 97% of its revenue through the sales to these stores. It also sells some cannabis directly to consumers via its retail website, but that amounts for about only 3% of its revenue. So obviously the
Wow.
online store's not doing very good, but yeah.
I
Well,
would
they
not
got
have,
it
I
up.
would have thought it would have been higher. That's shocking to me that there's only 3% that go online and everybody else is going to the
Yeah.
stores. What also is shocking is how they've made so much money when these retailers are going out of business because they can't afford their taxes or their rent. What's going on here?
Well, they
If
just
they're the
changed the
ones that are
mark.
selling it to them. They're their wholesaler. Come on.
Well, they had a
what's going on?
markup. They had a markup of 42% or something, and they've dropped it down in the last 2 months or month or something like that.
So these numbers will be different last year, but
should.
they just were so greedy for most of the year.
Oh,
That's
yeah.
how they got this. Says even without stores, the OCS was the country's biggest, highest earning cannabis agency. Its $234 million profit last year easily topped the $95 million made by Quebec's agency, and the $18 million of New Brunswick, and the $2.9 million of Prince Edward Islands.
Holy smokes, eh?
Yeah.
And yeah, without a store.
Exactly.
Yeah, population sizes explain some of the earnings differences. On a per resident basis, Ontario's agency profit was $15.22, higher than Quebec's $10.83, but lower than the PEI's $17 or New Brunswick $22.
Wow.
Profits and dividends. Look, Ontario doesn't even have a dividend.
Wow. Pricing also mattered. OCS retail prices were 75% higher than what it paid producers.
Wow.
What? I can't even get past that. I need to read that again. OCS retail prices were 75% higher than what it paid producers. So they marked up by 75%. That makes me want to cry. Are you serious? How could you do that to them?
Oh.
Like comparison, retail markups were only
that trickles down to us. You know, that comes to us.
Well, that's just what I mean. But if you think about it, they're not paying the producers anything close to that, and then they mark it up. It's not fair. It's not fair to anybody.
No.
That left more money for industry and consumers. New Brunswick markups were higher at 108%. Oh my God!
Wow.
But they're buying it. That's what I mean. The little guy, the farmer, he's getting a little bit. We're paying so much money for our cannabis if we go to these stores, 108%. So everybody's getting dinged.
Yeah. Now, it says it's good that the OCS is profitable, but profitable firms should reward their owners. Cannabis industries or agencies in other provinces pay generous dividends to their governments. Quebec and PEI got 100% of their agency's profit last year, while New Brunswick got 90%. But go ahead.
Ontario's government received no dividends from OCS. None. That must change. There's little point in the OCS charging high prices to earn high profits if the provincial government isn't using them. There should be no profits. Cut what we're spending and give more to the farmer. Why would they give more to the government?
Yeah, and the OCS is government entity, but they're not giving it over to the public. Yeah.
What's going on?
It says, so the Ontario government should review its cannabis policies other jurisdictions are already doing. Federal government's legislative review of the Cannabis Act is underway after a delay caused by the pandemic. The Yukon government announced the cannabis policy review in October. Manitoba canceled its social responsibility fee in July.
So then it's saying Ontario should follow suit. It should either put its cannabis profits to work or stop taking them from struggling cannabis firms. The first option means treating the Ontario Cannabis Store as a cash cow, as the province does with its liquor agency. In that case, the government should spend the earnings appropriately. It could, for example, fund addiction treatments for cannabis and other drugs. Hold on. Addiction treatments. Or it could support social justice programs to help communities most affected by pre-legalization drug laws.
It could also support research and development for medical cannabis. Hey, exactly. Sponsoring drug trials or other studies could help convert folklore remedies into proven treatments that could benefit patients, physicians, and producers all at once. Hey, exactly.
I love these ideas. The second option means viewing the OCS as a service to the industry. I thought they were. I thought they were initially. I didn't realize that they were just a store. I thought they were going to be our education source, our social social equity source, but they're not. They're not. Alberta does this already. It says, I missed it. It jumped ahead. Something about the agency. Really long article. Wow.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, it is long. It is a bit of an article. They're actually right at the bottom end though. It just says the OCS should especially limit markups for farm gate sales whereby cannabis is sold directly from producers, greenhouses to visiting consumers. It doesn't touch those products and shouldn't profit from them. It says Ontario's government faces a choice. They can be progressive by using OCS funds for public benefit, or be conservative by minimizing the cost to the industry.
They should do both.
They could do both.
You know, if you're going to take the money, use it for proper use, and then cut back. The 75% is ridiculous. Even that out.
Yeah.
Wow. That was a great article. That's one of my favorite ones we've ever found.
I've always hear about the big money on them, so it was interesting when you get into an article and be able to see those numbers. So, all right, we better be moving along here. Next story. New study says LSD and psilocybin could outperform opioids for pain without developing tolerance.
Wonderful. Most people put pain and depression into two separate categories, self-included, this author. But when a doctor recently explained that PTSD and depression hurt too, the light bulb went off, and of course they do.
The lines between emotional and physical pain are entirely blurred due to the brain's interconnected processing mechanisms. People with nociceptive conditions know this better than anyone. Unfortunately, I can't pronounce that word or even know what it is.
I'm not going to try it. It's pain that involves glitches in how the nervous system processes bodily and emotional discomfort. People with this pain feel intense anguish despite the lack of apparent injuries or nerve damage. Wow. Many also develop depression, hinting that their emotional and physical pain share underlying causes. Desperate for relief, people often turn to opiates alongside various talk therapies. This is so true.
It is, yeah.
Yeah.
Opioids work horrifically well at first because they act directly on the central nervous system to block pain signals and make people feel elated. However, it's no secret by now that these pain ravagers come with an increasing tolerance, addiction, and life-threatening respiratory depression.
Unlike opiates, LSD and psilocybin don't directly and immediately modulate pain receptors, but they may have a serious edge for this condition, a different kind of condition like fibromyalgia, IBS, and CRPS due to the serotonergic action. It's a recent literature review suggesting that these classic psychedelics may tackle physical agony with increasing efficacy over time while multitasking on the origins of emotional anguish. Wow.
Yeah. Now, according to the review, psychedelic treatment for physical pain isn't exactly new. Between 1964 and 1977, small-scale clinical trials and case reports showed LSD was a powerful painkiller, even outperforming opioids for cancer and gangrene.
You fast forward to today, and people are self-medicating cluster headaches with LSD and psilocybin, often with better results than conventional treatments.
The pain studies are growing, but psychedelic therapy is still far better known for mental health. Countless trials starting in the 1950s showed LSD and psilocybin can have the lasting positive effects on mental and emotional struggles, enhancing resilience and self-awareness. Psilocybin is even fast approaching potential FDA approval for treatment-resistant depression, thanks to incredible clinical results. And I wouldn't doubt also because it's not smoking.
Right, of course. Can psychedelics become the new painkillers? It seems that way. Psychedelics seem to rewire the brain in ways that change its relationship to emotional strife and make it less sensitive to physical pain signals. Wow.
This complex neutral adjustment could be critical for neuroceptive patients whose pain detecting neurons get triggered by even the mildest stimuli. Sensitivity often starts with run-of-the-mill pain, but over time the feeling gets more intense and eventually the discomfort sticks around like an uninvited maniac. The condition transforms from acute to chronic in no time as cells shift roles, genes function differently, and cellular proteins start to move out of place.
This is exploding my brain right now. Eventually, the brain shifts from this mismanaging physical pain to bungling emotions as well, potentially explaining why many chronic pain patients develop depression and anxiety. Wow. Chronic pain also involves changes in the part of the brain network associated with self-focused thoughts. In 2001, scientists named these areas the default mode network.
People with depression or chronic neuroplastic pain show unusual high activity in the DMN linked to getting stuck in loops of negative thoughts or being overly self-obsessed. The DMN in these cases can't connect well with other brain parts, especially those dealing with emotions and pain. Psychedelics are interesting here as they famously interact with serotonin receptors occurring prominently throughout the DMN. What are you doing,
Such a
Obi?
cool study. This is such a great article. Holy. By activating the serotonin receptors, psychedelics seem to increase the brain's information richness or entropy. Higher entropy allows the brain to break free from the DMN's rigid and overactive control. This process could reset the brain, potentially offering a new way to treat chronic pain and emotional distress. So they're saying psychedelics are basically rewiring us from all of the damage that trauma has caused.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah. This is another lengthy article. So I'll shut it off there, but it is on our Facebook wall.
Everyone
Psychedelics
needs to read that.
Medication News. Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. It's
Wow.
the stuff that past research, back in the 1950s. So they're talking, basically 75 years ago almost.
Brilliant.
That some of this research has been out
Yeah.
there, right?
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. This is the last story before we go to break. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yeah, it is. All right. This comes to us from CP24. Headline says edibles becoming more popular among cannabis impaired drivers in Ontario. Survey says.
More than a third of Ontario drivers who admit to driving under the influence of cannabis say they consumed edibles prior to entering their vehicle.
According to a survey conducted by CAA South Central Ontario, about 7% of drivers across the province admit to having driven after consuming some sort of cannabis in the past 3 months.
Of those drivers, about 38% said their product of choice was an edible. This is a roughly 12% increase from the previous year and double the rate in 2019.
The data shows us that while drivers primarily engage in cannabis-impaired driving after smoking a joint, the prevalence of driving under the influence of edibles is on the upswing, and that poses a greater risk to road safety, according to Michael Stewart. He's the Community Relations Director at CAA.
Who also says that edibles are harder to detect and can take up to 2 hours for the effects to kick in.
About 70% of cannabis-impaired drivers say that they got behind the wheel within 3 hours of consumption. Nearly half said they felt high while driving.
At the same time, the survey suggests 85% of drivers felt they were confident in their driving ability.
Despite the misconception that cannabis may not impair driving ability, it affects coordination, reaction time, attention, judgment, and decision-making, according to Stewart.
According to her, we want to emphasize our commitment to public education, urging motorists to stay informed about the risks and penalties of impaired driving. And impaired means something different for each person, of course.
Yeah, it does, yeah. Now, they say the online study was 1,518 adult drivers. It was done through the summer of June, from the end of June to mid of July. It suggests that 6% of Ontario drivers have been charged with impaired driving, while another 6% were involved in a collision caused by impaired driving. However, only about half are aware that penalties are the same as alcohol-impaired driving. Yeah, they are the same.
They are the same. And again, impaired with alcohol and impaired with cannabis is certainly one apples and oranges.
Well, yeah, and if they're still using that saliva test,
Right.
at the 5 nanograms. You know,
Yeah.
patients, you, I, and you know, many others
Yeah.
would wake up technically impaired, even though
Absolutely.
we might not have consumed, you know, hours
Even for
before.
12 hours, we'd still
Yeah,
have that for sure. Vampires would get high if they sucked my blood, Al, at any point in time of the day.
yeah, I know how you feel.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Or medical
all right.
patients.
We're medical patients, exactly. You know, and I know that when the laws first came in, I had a patient that called me, and they were really concerned. They figured they might
Of
not
course,
drive
it
for
would
a
be
while.
scary for them. Yeah.
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 So, all
Fear.
right, it's break time. Time to medicate. Kelly and I will be right back after our medical session. You're watching Psychedelics Cannabis Educational News here at paceradio.net and cbgtv.com.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit, or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
Are you looking to get your medical cannabis grow license? Limestone City Hydroponics can help patients through the process of obtaining their license to grow medical cannabis. What's that? You don't have a doctor. If you meet the medical criteria, Limestone City Hydroponics has a nurse practitioner who can assess and provide medical cannabis prescriptions. What are you waiting for? Contact Limestone City Hydroponics at limestonecityhydroponics.ca or call them at 613-548-0420.
What do you find at paceradio.net? People advocating cannabis education.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Cannabis edibles are an effective way to manage pain and other ailments, especially when you deal with your trusted partner, Legacy 420, in Tyendinaga Mohawk territory. You see, we lab test every product on site to ensure proper dosage every time, which is critical when consuming cannabis edibles. All Legacy 420 edibles are made by our classically trained baker and chocolatier, and we also have super tasty vegan options.
Our baker has been in the industry for 25 years. She's also a chocolatier. Everything from savory to sweet, your chocolate bars, brownies, butter tarts, you name it, we make it.
Talk to our knowledgeable Cannatex about our incredible variety available. Give your trusted partners a call. Legacy 420 out on your road.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
And we're back from our medical session in July with Psychedelics and Cannabis Education News. Well, Rev Kelly, on to our next story. All right. And this comes to us from the Globe and Mail. Headline says, Indigenous cannabis entrepreneurs choose between government red tape and reserve red markets.
Mm-hmm. Alderville First Nation. It's a reserve south of Roseneath, Ontario, and it has a dozen cannabis stores, make up a short stretch of Highway 45 in what's being dubbed the Green Mile, in which you and I said there's got to be more than 12 there.
When I read this, I went, 12? What?
There's got to be more than there.
Since Canada legalized cannabis in 2018, the sector's annual GDP sits at about $10.8 billion. sustaining tens of thousands of jobs across the country. While cannabis is federally regulated, the oversight of wholesale distribution and retail is in the hands of the provinces and territories.
The dispensaries on the Green Mile mostly fall outside that sector. They're part of a different market, one that is surprisingly not operating under provincial dispensary laws. It's what Indigenous industry experts call the red market.
Technically, we're not legal to the Canadian government, and we're not licensed through the province, says Robert Stevenson. He's from the Anishinaabe of the Bear Clan and owner of the Medicine Wheel, which is the first dispensary opened on the Green Mile.
A lot of respect for Rob. Indigenous people and First Nations across the country are sometimes sidestepping the formal processes for cannabis operations and distributing their own product on the red market instead. Stevenson says it's a reclamation of land acts laid out in the Canadian Constitution and Article 24 of the United Nations Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People.
The industry has really blossomed over the last 6 or 7 years, he says. Health Canada expert panel, which was taken to review the Cannabis Act, has acknowledged red market dispensaries, saying that they are compliant with community-based laws and regulations, but not federal and provincial laws.
That's huge. That's a big step for them to say that. According to the federal government, 47 Indigenous-owned or affiliated businesses have received a federal license to cultivate or process cannabis, but only 6 federally regulated businesses are located within First Nations communities. Meanwhile, more than 475 sovereign Indigenous dispensaries operate across Canada and the United States. Only 475. That's a low number. You would have thought.
Yeah, I thought so too. I agree. Health Canada understands that for First Nations, Inuit, and Métis leaders, organizations and individuals' discussions about cannabis legalization and regulations are critically linked to broader issues such as self-determination, reconciliation, and economic and community development, according to Tammy Jarbo, spokesperson for Health Canada and the Public Health Agency of Canada.
Well, at least they're saying something positive. Support for the self-determination of Indigenous peoples is a key objective of the Government of Canada. This must be balanced with the need to ensure that the legal and regulatory framework for cannabis, including criminal prohibitions, is applied consistently across the country.
While the bulk of Indigenous-owned cannabis operations fall under the red market umbrella, others are pursuing the legal route, but that comes with its own challenges.
The Songhees First Nation, which is located on the southern tip of Vancouver Island, has a unique collaboration with Surrey, BC-based Seed and Stone, and it has 2 state-of-the-art boutique cannabis stores in Victoria. Seed and Stone was started in 2020 by Vikram Sachdeva, an Indian immigrant who, prior to cannabis entrepreneurship, owned a handful of Subway franchises.
Mm-hmm. He says cannabis needs to have entrepreneurs. Sachdeva began pitching Seed and Stone to Songhees chief Ron Sam in 2021. With this model, Sachdeva says the Songhees Nation has a majority stake in each store, and it has the autonomy over the overall direction. Sachdeva, under a separate company called Waterleaf Management, helps manage and run the stores, taking a minority stake.
Well, the Globe and Mail reached out to them, but they didn't receive a response in time for the publication. Yeah. They said that the biggest barrier to owning a cannabis store, especially cannabis companies, are facing significant job losses and facility closing. They said establishing a licensed cannabis store is a drawn-out process, too full of public hearings, zoning issues, and permits, all that red tape.
Yeah. It's not easy to navigate the process, Sachdeva says. It takes anywhere from 8 to 12 to 14 months. Legal cannabis stores require government licenses, and they compete with government-owned stores, which often sell products for a lower price than privately owned retailers.
Says it's even more difficult when your main competitor restricts the amount of stores you can have. British Columbia, for example, has limited the amount of cannabis dispensaries one company can operate to 8. In April, the provincial government said it will be looking into lifting the cap, but no changes have been announced.
Now you wait to read the changes that's going on here in Ontario.
Yeah, yeah.
I hope the province is making it easier, because right now it isn't. If the government can open up to 39 stores across BC, First Nations like the Songhees should be able to open as many as they want to.
Stevenson says Medicine Wheel was one of the first dispensaries in Canada to offer edible cannabis products when it opened in 2017. Meanwhile, it took several years for edibles to hit stores in Canada. Since then, the business has expanded operations significantly, opening its own extraction facility, its own manufacturing facility, and its own on-site laboratory. Stevenson says he's working in the community to help others open their own cannabis stores.
Yeah, he estimates half of the residents in Alderville are benefiting from the cannabis industry. The Alderville Band Council sees the potential, how much employment and tourism it brings in, and it's changing lives on our reserve. Well, I can tell you how much traffic it's bringing. They had to lower the speed limit.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. They had to
and change the way that the structure of the roads were at one point, because there's so much traffic. Yeah. It's wonderful for them. Enterprise. Before this, the only thing they had were smoke shops and gas stations. Now they've got huge enterprise in Alderville. People travel from all over the country to go there.
Yeah.
Yep.
Well, you know, I'm just lucky here. I live in between two of probably the largest reserves on Canada that have stores.
Tyendinaga as well. Yeah, they're wonderful. We're lucky.
Yeah.
We're lucky.
It's great. Options, choices. All right. On to our next story. This one comes to us from CP24, and the headline on it says that Ontario to ban cannabis in homes offering childcare. There also increased retail stores for operators.
My goodness. They're banning the growing of cannabis in homes that offer childcare services, and they will increase the number of stores that retailers can operate in the province.
The changes will be proposed in a new omnibus bill entitled the Enhancing Justices Act on Thursday. The bill, if passed, will make it illegal to cultivate recreational cannabis in homes that offer childcare services. So, okay, hang on. So you run a childcare service out of your home. You're no longer allowed to grow your 4 legal cannabis plants.
Right. Just because children are coming into your home for care. It doesn't matter that. And when you have a licensed childcare facility, because I used to license them in your home, you have to go through huge things to get that. You have to have your electricity outlets covered. You have to have everything locked away. You have to have huge requirements. So I'm going to guess that your plants are wherever they are. Your kids are not getting into them. But now they're saying, even if you want to have that, even if you have a medical license, even if you have that for your recreation, none. That's it.
Yeah.
No more. No children are allowed in your house. Wrong. We find this deeply unsettling and appropriate, and quite frankly, I never imagined we'd even have to legislate this. That comes from Attorney General Doug Downey told reporters.
Yeah. And it says the bill, if passed, will make it illegal to cultivate recreational cannabis in the homes. Downey could not provide examples of incidents in which cannabis was found in a home offering childcare services, instead saying this came up because there were issues. But so where were they?
Yeah. Where's your proof?
Yeah. This sounds like there wasn't even a problem there, but they've just put this law in because it sounds good.
Blanketed over it. It's not a judgment on the quality childcare on the childcare facility themselves. It's simply an exposure issue. We just don't want it commingling. What a heck word is that?
Commingling. I don't know.
Who made that word up?
Copy and paste and do a search on it. At the same time, the legislation will increase the number of storefronts a cannabis owner can operate or manage in Ontario. Previous regulations capped the number of stores per operator at 75. While legislating the standalone stores must be at least 150 meters away from the schools, individuals under the age are now allowed inside. So, yeah, they're increasing the number of stores. So
250. What was the last one? They could have 8?
Yeah, I look at it as, let's say you got a big franchise.
Wow.
Style.
Like Tokyo Smoke.
Correct. Okay, so let's say they own 75 stores here in Ontario. That's all they could have. But now they'll be able to go out and maybe purchase other small businesses, mom and pop stores, so on and so forth, right? Doesn't mean that there's going to be more stores in the province.
No.
Just the ownership can change.
So all of our one-offs, our little mom and pop stores will now be Tokyo Smokes because
they could be bought up. Correct.
Yeah. And it'll happen because they're struggling because they can't pay their taxes to the CRA. They're, because they can't pay their employees or buy their cannabis. Oh my. Officials say this is to respond to the growth of the legal cannabis retail market and combat illegal cannabis stores.
Canada legalized, we know about that. Now there's 1,700 stores, and there's still applications in process. There's another 56 stores waiting for approval.
Wow.
Still after all those stores. But there's markets. There are markets that don't have a store in them. Towns.
A lot of Northern Ontario, I hear. They're desperate for their stores up there.
Yeah. So, all right. Next comes from MJBiz Daily, Canadian province. Did we just do this one? Yes, we did. Right. Just did that one.
Yeah.
On to the next story. We'll get this right. We're going to go to High Times because over in High Times, the headline there says Psilocybin, ADHD Medication Together. Study reveals potential of combined approach.
Researchers observed a notable development in an ongoing study of microdosing for ADHD. 2 weeks into the research, participants using traditional ADHD medication reported lower mindfulness levels compared to those not on medication. But at the 4-week mark, regardless of medication, both groups demonstrated improvements in mindfulness, indicating a leveling effect as a result of continued microdosing with psilocybin.
The study on microdosing, published in the Frontiers in Psychiatry journal, analyzed data from 233 individuals, most diagnosed with ADHD or experiencing severe symptoms. About a third of the participants using ADHD medication daily. These include pharmaceuticals like Endrol, Ritalin, and Concerta. Both groups, those medicated with such drugs, as well as those untreated, microdose psilocybin mushrooms.
As High Times reported, it's worth noting that for those people in the trial taking Adderall, getting their medicine may have been a struggle recently due to the medication shortage. The shortage of Adderall, which started in the fall of 2022, was initially expected to be a short-term issue, and the FDA predicted a resolution within a month or two. However, this has yet to be the case. In August 2023, a joint statement acknowledged the ongoing shortage, describing it as understandably frustrating for patients and healthcare providers. My goodness, that must be. So they have to use psilocybin.
There you go. The joint notice explained that the shortage began due to the manufacturing delay by one of the drug makers last fall. Although this issue has been resolved, its impact persists, exacerbating by an unprecedented increase in stimulant medication prescriptions. Over the past decade, from 2012 to 2021, there has been a 45.5% rise in the dispensing of stimulants, including amphetamine products and other similar medications in the U.S.
So while the study in question looked at people microdosing and those microdosing in addition to taking such medications, there's also a potential role for psychedelics to step in when traditional pharmaceutical methods fail.
Yeah, researchers began the study with an initial assessment of mindfulness and personality traits of all study participants. The scientists continued the research with additional check-ins at 2 and 4 weeks. The research team anticipated that microdosing would enhance trait mindfulness, which is the ability to be consciously aware of and attentive to present thoughts, feelings, and sensations without excessive reaction. They also expected improvements in traits such as consciousness, I can't even get that word out, extroversion, agreeableness, and openness, coupled with reduction in neuroticism.
2 weeks into the study, participants on traditional ADHD medication showed lower mindfulness levels compared to those not using medication. Yet, after 4 weeks of microdosing, this disparity went away, with both medicated and non medicated groups having similar improvements in mindfulness.
Additionally, 4 weeks into the study, the microdosers with ADHD showed the average mindfulness levels of the general population. Specifically, they demonstrated increased mindfulness, excelling in areas like acting with awareness and non-judgmental accepting their inner experiences. Additionally, these individuals exhibited a decrease in neuroticism, indicating reduced emotional instability.
Wow. PTSD, depression, anxiety, and other comorbid diagnoses have no impact on the study's participation results, yet the participants did not meet all of the researchers' expectations. For instance, personality traits like agreeableness and openness didn't change much, suggesting that microdosing may have a ceiling effect. In other words, it only helps so much.
The findings still hold important implications, though. Firstly, they indicate that microdosing has the potential to impact stable traits such as mindfulness and neuroticism for people with ADHD. The result showed that ADHD medication did not affect these changes, suggesting that microdosing could enhance existing treatment models and increase the quality of life for those with ADHD. It's a long story. It keeps
Yeah, but
going
that's
on.
great.
But
Good
that gives
information.
you a good idea, a good start. People find that yet again on our Facebook group page to see more, get more of that story. Just so you know, Kelly, I'm going to
Yeah.
jump one. I'm
Okay.
going to go to the last. I'm going to the last story.
Okay.
To the control room. And this story here, it comes from the New Scientist. It says, "Why does we give you the munchies?" Here's what science.
It's asking me to subscribe, so
Oh no!
if
It
you
does
can do
me
the
too.
beginning. Yeah,
Okay.
okay. Okay. We'll just talk about it a little. If you ever,
Sure.
it talks about no, it doesn't. It doesn't
No,
it
well, they
doesn't
say
give
there
us
may be
anything in here.
several reasons why cannabis encourages people to eat, including the fact that the psychoactive compound in cannabis affects the neurons that control hunger.
Yes,
That's
it
about
says
it.
if you've ever lit up a joint and craved snacks soon afterwards, you're probably experiencing the munchies. Stimulating appetite is one of cannabis's best known and most puzzling effects, but why does cannabis want you to chow down?
Yeah. Well, unfortunately, we won't be able
Yeah.
to share that with our
It just
viewers.
talks about the THC spiking the appetite and the different
Ye-
cannabinoids that can help with that. So
Yeah,
lots
yeah.
of
All
research
right.
on that. Wonderful.
Last story of the day. This one comes to us from MJBiz Daily, and the headline says, "Best days are to come for cannabis industry, MJBizCon attendees believe."
After a tough year for most cannabis operators, attendees at MJBizCon 2023 say they aren't banking on sweeping legislative reforms such as
No.
the rescheduling of cannabis to grow their businesses in the coming year.
Rather, they're hoping for more incremental policy changes, such as Safer Banking Act and new opportunities to open in emerging state markets. Yeah.
They're also shifting their attitudes away from viewing fellow operators as competition and instead looking to partner with them to find synergies.
The best days are to come, says Jesse Channon, Chief Commercial Officer at New York-based multi-state operator, the Cannabis Co., formerly known as the Columbia Care. He says, "There's going to be a rising tide, lifts all boards moment. I believe in that. If you don't believe in that, you shouldn't be in the industry."
Okay. Tim Swale, the executive vice president of sales of Boveda, even said that the Minnesota-based business is an ancillary operation. The passage of safer banking and its implications would be a huge boost to its clients, and thus would also benefit the company.
Yeah, but that Banking Act, it's been in there so long, they changed it from safe to safer.
I know.
Boveda manufactures humidity controls, which a lot of us know. Safer banking or the rescheduling of cannabis, the latter would mean the industry would no longer be subject to punitive Section 280E of the IRS tax code would be a huge relief to Bovita's clients and cannabis cultivators.
Yeah, saying having them become healthier would be very beneficial and a growth catalyst for our particular segment that we're in, Swell said, saying since we're packaging addictive to their packaging, sometimes cost becomes an additive to their packaging, sometimes cost becomes an issue.
Elmer Mayer, co-founder and CEO of cultivation robotics and artificial intelligence company Neatleaf, said his California headquartered business has grown in the past year because cash-strapped companies have been looking to cut costs and automate some aspects of their production processes.
And if cannabis were rescheduled, his clients would have better access to capital and as a result would invest more in cultivation facilities. That would mean more growth, more facilities, he says, and that obviously helps a lot.
The cannabis coach, Shannon, says he's looking forward to new state markets opening up. Our growth catalyst is all about accessibility. As we become accessible to more consumers will access our products, which is the exponential growth opportunity, right?
Very good points. Very good points. I know that this is also a very long article and we're almost out of time, but I know they made a lot of progress there and hopefully they will get their Safe Banking Act. I know that that was a topic of conversation at this MJBizCon, which is developed into the biggest cannabis conference in North America, certainly.
Yeah, it's been around for a few years. I know that I've seen. I obviously haven't attended it, but I've seen that it's been happening.
Let's go next year, Al. We'll go bring our reefer report down there.
All right. We're we're reefer reporters within the Pace News, I guess.
Always.
All right. We got about a minute. Anything you want to mention? Talk about?
Bon voyage.
Bon voyage. All right.
Bon voyage, my friend.
All right. Sounds good. All right. Other than that, from the Legacy420.com news desk, that's our Pace News report for December the 4th. Thanks to our buds at Limestone City Hydroponics.ca, Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, Legacy420.com. In closing, I'd like to say thanks for watching. Plus, don't forget to educate, medicate, and do not incarcerate.
You're listening to the Pace Radio Network here at paceradio.net.
The opinions of the individuals during this broadcast are their own, and may not be the opinions of their group or other organizations they may be involved with. All medical advice during our broadcast is not a medical opinion and should be checked with your medical physician.
When you have a pain that's reached its peak, Legacy for 20, it's so unique. If organic cannabis is what you seek, here's your trusted partners 7 days a week. Suppository salves, vapes and drops, topicals, edibles, infused pop. Just when life seems like it ain't easy, at Legacy 420, enjoy a pop freezy. Lab tested products, make them the GOAT. Legacy 420 out on your road. Legacy 420 in Tyndonega Mohawk territory. Indigenous organic cannabis at its finest.
Enjoy the buzz of legalization with Campbellford Lifestyle Shop. From lights to plant nutrients, books, consumption accessories, and more, we've got all your basics to grow or consume cannabis. Visit our info center or take a look at our piercing services and body jewelry, now available in-store through Campbellford Lifestyle Shop, 17 Bridge Street West, Campbellford.
Limestone City Hydroponics is Kingston, Ontario's hydroponics shop. Take your growing to the next level and create the optimal environment with a tent kit or maximize your yield with an ebb and flow flood table kit. Either way, Limestone City Hydroponics has more sizes and options to fit your needs. Are you looking for the power of the sun that adapts to your budget? Then look no further, as they have professional grow lighting. They have indoor grow systems that are easy and cost effective, with many options to fit your living space and lifestyle. Cultivate your growing potential. We have everything you need to succeed. And if you can't make it to the store, they offer local delivery to the greater Kingston area. Remember, when you're looking for experts to help you grow, then look no further than the locally owned Limestone City Hydroponics, 105 Sunderland Drive in Kingston, Ontario. Call them at 613-548-0420.
We are people advocating cannabis education here at paceradio.net. paceradiocannabis.net.